Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Chapter 230. At that very time, in circumstances even more important than retreating without a battle, namely the evacuation and burning of Moscow, Rostopchkin, who is usually represented as being the instigator of that event, acted in an altogether different manner from Kutuzov. After the Battle of Borodino, the abandonment and burning of Moscow was as inevitable as the retreat of the army beyond Moscow without fighting. Every Russian might have predicted it, not by reasoning, but by the feeling implanted in each of us and in our fathers. The same thing that took place in Moscow had happened in all the towns and villages on Russian soil, beginning with Smolensk, without the participation of Count Rostopchin and his broadsheets. The people awaited the enemy unconcernedly, did not riot or become excited or tear anyone to pieces, but faced its fate, feeling within it the strength to find what it should do at that most difficult moment. And as soon as the enemy drew near, the wealthy classes went away abandoning their property, while the poor remained and burned and destroyed what was left. The consciousness that this would be so, and would always be so, was and is present in the heart of every Russian. And a consciousness of this, and a foreboding that Moscow would be taking, was present in Russian Moscow society in 1812. Those who had quitted Moscow already in July and at the beginning of August showed that they expected this. Those who went away, taking what they could and abandoning their houses and half their belongings, did so from the latent patriotism, which expresses itself not by phrases or by giving one's children to save the fatherland in similar unnatural exploits, but unobtrusively, simply, organically, and therefore in the way that always produces the most powerful results. It is disgraceful to run away from danger. Only cowards are running away from Moscow, they were told. In his broadsheets, Rostopchin impressed on them that to leave Moscow was shameful. They were ashamed to be called cowards, ashamed to leave, but still they left, knowing it had to be done. Why did they go? It is impossible to suppose that Rostopchin had scared them by his accounts of horrors of Napoleon. The first people to go away were the rich educated people, who knew quite well that Vienna and Berlin had remained intact, and that during Napoleon's occupation, the inhabitants had spent their time pleasantly in the company of the charming Frenchmen, whom the Russians, and especially the Russian ladies, then liked so much. They went away because for Russians there could be no question as to whether things could go well or ill under French rule in Moscow. It was out of the question to be under French rule. It would be the worst thing that could happen. They went away even before the Battle of Borodino, and still more rapidly after it, despite Rostopchin's calls to defend Moscow, or the announcement of his intention to take the wonder-working icon of the Iberian Mother of God and go to fight, or of the balloons that were to destroy the French, and despite all the nonsense Rostopchin wrote in his broadsheets. They knew that it was for the army to fight, and that if it could not succeed, it would not do to take young ladies and house serfs to the Three Hills quarter of Moscow to fight Napoleon, and that they must go away, sorry as they were to abandon their property to destruction. They went away without thinking of the tremendous significance of that immense and wealthy city being given over to destruction. For a great city with wooden buildings was certain, when abandoned by its inhabitants, to be burned. They went away each on his own account, and yet it was only in consequence of their going away that the momentous event was accomplished that will always remain the greatest glory of the Russian people. The lady who, afraid of being stopped by Count Raspachin's orders, had already in June moved with her Negroes and her women jesters from Moscow to the Savartov estate, with a vague consciousness that she was not Bonaparte's servant, was really simply and truly carrying out the great work which saved Russia. But Count Raspachin, who now taunted those who left Moscow, and now had the government offices removed, now distributed quite useless weapons to the drunken rabble, now had processions displaying the icons, and now forbade Father Augustine to remove icons or the relics of the saints, now seized all the private carts in Moscow, and on 136 of them removed the balloon that was being constructed by Lepich, now hinted that he could burn Moscow, and related how he had set fire to his own house, now wrote a proclamation to the French solemnly upbraiding them for having destroyed his orphanage, now claimed the glory of having hinted that he would burn Moscow, and now repudiated the deed, now ordered the people to catch all spies and bring them to him, and now reproached them for doing so, now expelled all the French residents from Moscow, and now allowed Madame Aubour-Chalmers, the center of the whole French colony in Moscow, to remain, but ordered the venerable old postmaster Kluyechev to be arrested and exiled for no particular offense, now assembled the people at the Three Hills to fight the French, and now, to get rid of them, handed over to them a man to be killed, and himself drove away by a back gate, now declared that he would not survive the fall of Moscow, and now wrote French verses and albums concerning his share in the affair. This man did not understand the meaning of what was happening, but merely wanted to do something himself that would astonish people, to perform some patriotically heroic feat. And like a child, he made sport of the momentous and unavoidable event, the abandonment and burning of Moscow, and tried with his puny hand now to speed and now to stay the enormous popular tide that bore him along with it. All right, that concludes my reading of chapter 230. I will now proceed to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 230. So it goes. In Denis Villeneuve's formidable science fiction film Arrival, Dr. Louis Banks gains the ability to perceive time in all of its totality, much like Vonnegut's Tromafodorians. Dr. Banks's total perception of time is a heavy burden. She is exposed not only to all the sadness of her past, but also to the inevitable misery of her future. The film makes an explicit point of this, focusing throughout on the pain she experiences over the loss of her daughter to childhood cancer and on her eventual divorce. Nearly all of Louise's memories, both past and present, seem to confirm Schopenhauer's observation that misfortune and suffering is the general rule of life. Yet, she embraces the misery. She embraces her life. She adopts the point of view of Giacomo Leopardi, that exquisite Italian pessimist, who argues that not only should we accept the suffering of life, we should also enjoy it. Live, Leopardi wrote, and be great and unhappy. Is this not the same practice of many of the Muscovites in today's chapter? After the Battle of Borodino, Tolstoy writes, the abandonment and burning of Moscow was as inevitable as the retreat of the army beyond Moscow without fighting. The wealthy flee the city, while the poor remain to burn or destroy whatever the wealthy have left behind. The consciousness that this would be so, and always would be so, Tolstoy continues, was present in Moscow society in 1812. The Muscovites and Dr. Banks's decision is Nietzsche's Dionysian pessimism writ large, the desire to become a yes-sayer, even, especially even, in the face of great suffering. This is the idea that when we're presented with an eternal recurrence of human suffering, we must welcome it. We must accept the pain of loss and the perishability of life. We must abandon the concept that happiness is the ultimate goal, and move forward, creating meaning for ourselves out of the miserable nothingness of existence. For Nietzsche, to willfully embrace the eternal recurrence, a variation of which is Dr. Banks's new understanding of time, is, quote, Dionysian wisdom, joy in the destruction of the most noble and at the sight of its progressive ruin. In reality, joy in what is coming and lies in the future, which triumphs over existing things, however good, end quote. Daily meditation. My formula for greatness in man is amor fati. The fact that a man wishes nothing to be different, either in front of him or behind him, or for all eternity. Not only must the necessary be born, and on no account concealed, All idealism is falsehood in the face of necessity, but it must also be loved. Friedrich Nietzsche, Ecce Homo. All right, that concludes my reading of and reflection on chapter 230, complete with some mispronunciations, as always, of Latin and probably English too. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for joining me. And remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation to PayPal. The links to all that are down below in the show notes. Tomorrow, we're going to be reading and reflecting on chapter 231 of War and Peace. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.